He died hundreds of times. He came back every single time, and then one day, the most unkillable being in Warhammer 40k universe simply stopped coming back. This is not a story about the nice Primarch. This is not a story about kindness. This is a story about men who refuse to break and choose the oblivion instead. If you have spent any time in the Warhammer 40k communities, you know the meme. Vulkan the nice boy, Vulkan hug, Vulkan protects the little guys. But here what the meme gets really wrong. Vulkan compassion wasn't softness, it was defiance. Every other Primarch accepted the Imperium's logic. Efficiency over lives, victory over cost. Vulkan looked at the same galaxy and say no, and then no is what destroyed him. To understand how, you need to see what he survived before to choose to walk away. Before Vulkan walked away from everything, before he carried the weight of a doomsday device he could only trigger, before he died hundreds of times at his brother's hands, he was a blacksmith's son on a death world, Nocturne, a planet of fire and beasts. Vulkan grew up forging weapons and tools. He understood metal, he understood heat, he understood that creation takes patience and destruction takes a second. When the Emperor arrived on Nocturne, he didn't reveal himself. He disguised himself as a stranger and competed in a series of tests. Strength, craft, endurance. Vulkan won every single one, not by being the faster or the most brutal, by being the most stubborn, by refusing to quit. When the Emperor finally revealed himself, the other Primarchs wept, or raged, or knelt. Vulkan picked up his hammer and went back to work. He was given the Salamanders, the 18th Legion. He built them in his image, warriors who would hold a collapsing line because civilians were still evacuating behind them, warriors who would burn alive rather than abandon a single soul. The Imperium called it weakness, the other Legion called it sentimentality, Vulkan called it the bare minimum, and the Isstvan V showed him exactly what the Imperium told of men who held the line. The Drop Site Massacre. The Salamanders, the Raven Guard, and the Harrow Hands were told they were crushing a rebellion. Instead, they walked into a trap. Fourth Traitor Legion turned on them, the moment the heresy became real. Vulkan fought harder than any Primarch on the battlefield. He held the line while his legion died around him, not because of pride, because behind him, thousands of his sons were still trying to escape. And then the Iron Warriors found him. Perturbo's men captured Vulkan alive. They dragged him before Coronel Curze, the Night Haunter, the Primarch who believed Terra was the only honest language, who tortured people because he believed the truth of a man is the only revealed in his suffering. Curze killed Vulkan. He brought him back. He killed him again and again and again. This is the part of the story most people know. Vulkan Lives, the novel that gives you every death in a single detail. Curze burned him, flayed him, broke every bone and let the perpetual regeneration stitch Vulkan back together so he could do it again. Hundreds of deaths. Each resurrection faster than the last. Vulkan remembered every single one. The pain didn't fade, he accumulated. But here's what people miss. Vulkan didn't break. Curze was trying to prove a point, and everyone breaks. Their loyalty is just a delusion. Vulkan proved him wrong. He endured, but something had changed, not his loyalty, but his understanding of what the Imperium actually was. And then Curze made a mistake. Curze built a maze designed by Perturbo, and in its center he placed the Dawnbringer, Vulkan's hammer, a final cruelty. Let Vulkan see his weapon, let him fight for it, let him hope for it. Vulkan navigated the maze and retrieved the Dawnbringer. The same Primarch who had killed him hundreds of times, Vulkan overpowered him, and then he activated the teleporter built into the hammer's head, and then he vanished. Burned up in a Macragge atmosphere, confident he would wake up in the care of the Ultramarines, but he was wrong. Vulkan's body regenerated on Macragge, but the man who came back was not the man who entered Curze's torture chamber. He was violent, incoherent, attacking everything around him. The apothecaries couldn't restrain him. Guilliman himself came to see who had fallen from the sky and found a brother he didn't recognize. And then Vulkan sensed something. Curze was on Macragge. The Night Haunter had been trapped aboard a Dark Angel's flagship, stolen a drop pod, crashed into a planet's surface. And then Vulkan, broken, furious, consumed by months of dying, broke free of his bond and went hunting. They fought across an entire city. Curze shot Vulkan's head off, and Vulkan regenerated before he hit the ground and kept coming. Their duel was only stopped when a third party intervened, a perpetual named John Grammaticus, working with the Cabal. Grammaticus drove a Fulgurite shard through Vulkan's heart. The Fulgurite, anathema crystal, he suppressed the perpetual regeneration. Vulkan died, truly died. The shard pinned his spirits in place and stopped the resurrection. His body was kept on Macragge, and there, through the eventual removal of the Fulgurite, Vulkan was resurrected, not by his own power, by intervention. And then came the journey to Terra. The ruinstorm had cut off the galaxy in half. Vulkan took the only route left, the webway, and he didn't walk it alone. Heldrad, the greatest Farsi of the Eldar, guided Vulkan through the labyrinth, the same Eldar the Imperium freed at Xenos Field, the same Eldar every other Primarch would have killed on sight. Vulkan walked a demon-haunted tunnel at the side of a creature his own empire defined as an enemy, and he reached Terra. He had survived Curze's torture. He had beaten Curze with his own hammer, and he had haunted his torturer across the city. He died again and came back. He had walked the webway with Eldrad, and then he was ready to fight for his father. And then his father showed him what he had really been building for. The Emperor had a task for Vulkan, not a weapon to carry into battle, not a legion to lead, a device, embedded into Vulkan's own gene seed, a weapon that only Vulkan could activate, a weapon that once triggered could destroy the Golden Throne and with it Terra. This was the Talisman of the Seven Hammers, and here's where the most lore summarized get it wrong. They call it a dead man's switch. They say it activates when the Emperor dies. It doesn't. Read between the lines of the end at the death and something darker emerges. The talisman requires manual activation. Vulkan must sit on the Golden Throne, Vulkan must choose to press it, and only Vulkan can do it. The Emperor made Vulkan build a weapon that only Vulkan could fire, a weapon that would end Terra. And Vulkan understood. His father hadn't just used him, he made it to the trigger man for the apocalypse. Think about what that means. Every other Primarch was given a legion, a purpose, a war to fight. Vulkan was given a doomsday device and told, when the time comes, you will be the one who ends everything, and you will do it because I built you to be the only one who can. This is not kindness. This is not the Emperor being gentle with his most compassionate son. This is the Emperor engineering a cursed trigger that only one man can pull. Vulkan left Terra. He carried the talisman inside him. He could have activated at any moment, and this is the weight he carried for the rest of his life. 10,000 years later, the War of the Beast. The Orcs invaded the Imperium at a scale they never seen before. 6 massive attack moons appeared in the Imperial space. Entire sector fell. The High Lords of Terra were dead or hiding. The Imperium was collapsing, and Vulkan came back. He appeared on the surface of a dying world. No explanation, no grand entrance, just a Primarch standing in the ruins, telling the survivors they would not let them fall. He led the defense of the Imperium. He fought the Orcs on every front. He died there again and again, and each time the resurrection was harder, slower, more painful. And here's where the community debate begins. Read between the lines of the War of the Beast novels and something darker emerges again. Vulkan wasn't just fighting to save the Imperium. He was fighting like a man who no longer feared death, because he already died too many times to count. At the critical moment, Vulkan confronted the Beast, the massive Orc warlords. And there, at the heart of the Orc power generator, surrounded by the Wa energy that was tearing the structure apart, Vulkan made his choice. He stayed. The Orc generator detonated. The energy and plasma ripped through the temple garden. Vulkan died on one final time, or at least a death so total that even Perpetual could not easily return from it. The novels don't say explicitly, but the community has debated intensively. Did Vulkan choose to die? The weight of the being the Emperor Doomsday trigger was too much for even a Perpetual to carry? We don't really know. The War of the Beast just proved it. Vulkan fought it like a man who accepted death, and that death took him. After the War of the Beast, Vulkan vanished. The Salamanders spent 10,000 years searching for him. Their quest became doctrine, the prophecy of the 5 artifacts. They believed Vulkan had left behind 5 sacred objects, and then when all 5 were united, their Primarch would return. But consider what Vulkan was carrying, not just the trauma of a cursed torture, not just the Fulgurite death and the webway and the war, the Talisman of the Seven Hammers, a weapon embedded in his own gene seed that only he could activate. That would destroy Terra if he chose to sit on the Golden Throne and press it. Now, Vulkan didn't disappear because he was lost. Vulkan disappeared because he was the most dangerous man in the Imperium, and he knew it. Imagine being Vulkan. Your father turned you into a living bomb. Your brother tortured you for months and you beat him, but the rage never left. You died and came back and died and came back every single time. You fought a war across 10,000 years and each resurrection cost more than the last. And inside you, always the talisman, always the choice, always the trigger that you could pull but you never would. The Salamanders wait for Vulkan to return. They search for his artifact, and they kept the faith. But the darker reading, and the one the Lord supports, is that Vulkan isn't coming back because Vulkan chose to leave, not because he was weak, because he was the only Primarch who understood that his existence was a threat to everything he loved. Vulkan is remembered as the nice one, the friendly Primarch, the man who endured. But Vulkan didn't endure. He fought, he beat his torturer with his own hammer, he hunted his brother across an entire city. He walked the webway with an alien because it was the right thing to do. He led the defense of the Imperium where no one else could, and he carried a weapon that could end everything. That's not just endurance, that's restraint. The question is whether after everything he carried, there is anything left of the man who refused to fire. So let me know in the comments, will Vulkan return anytime soon? And if he returns, will he be the same nice Primarch that he was? Again, thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.